Are you up for a good challenge? Let's go on an adventure. Hello and welcome to Capricious Conversations. Thank you for joining me today. If you're anything like me, you love adventures and you also love challenges, and you know that challenges can become adventures and often do, because as you pursue that challenge, the adventure is in conquering it. One of the biggest challenges that I've come across is learning a new language. I love learning new languages. It's so much fun. I mean, it unlocks whole new worlds to you, whole new cultures, people groups, opportunities. Learning languages is awesome, and I've already done a show on that, so I won't bore you with the why you should. But today, I'm going to tell you, for those of you who love a good challenge, I'm going to talk about the 5 most difficult languages for English speakers to learn. Now, a lot of these have to do with the fact that they're not based on Latin alphabets. Latin alphabets are super easy for English learners because you can relate to the sounds. Languages that don't have Latin alphabets can be a little bit trickier. For instance, our number 5, which is Georgian. Now, this language is only spoken by the people who actually live in the country and a few immigrants. Okay, it is gorgeous, by the way. The written language, it looks something kind of like Elvish. It's very swirly, it's very fluid language, I would say. But that can make it really difficult for English speakers to learn because the characters look very similar word to word. It's also a very difficult language to learn because they use glottal stops, and the written form of the glottal stop, and even the spoken one, it's very similar to the letter that it's like. So like there's a P and then there's a P with a glottal stop. They look very similar. They're said very similarly, but they can change entire word meanings based on how you use them. And so for English language learners, but until you can differentiate that subtle difference, it can be really difficult to communicate with Georgians. They often have a hard time understanding language learners, and they're also really not used to people trying to learn their language. It's only spoken by very few people, and not a whole lot of people try and learn it. So if you're really up for a challenge, check out Georgian. Be one of the few, the proud, the Georgian speakers. Number 4 is Arabic. Now, this one is difficult for several reasons. Arabic is spoken throughout a lot of the Middle Eastern world. It's spoken in, Egypt and a bunch of the stands around there. A lot of Islamic countries speak Arabic because it's the language that the Quran was written in. 422 million people worldwide speak Arabic. In that, there are tons of different dialects, there's differences in writing, but it's still all lumped into one language group. So it's called a sociolinguistic group. Researchers have said that if they were to actually separate it out, they can't actually tell how many languages it would be, but it would be a massive amount. But for religious and social reasons, it's all lumped into one language group, which makes Arabic extremely difficult to learn based on the region that you're learning it. If you're learning it in America and you go try and speak it somewhere, you might have a hard time. So make sure you know which region you're trying to learn from and try and get their region's dialect. Number 3, one of my personal favorites. I'm actually going here in July. I will be doing blogs from Poland. You won't actually see them until I get back, but I will be filming blogs in Poland. Poland is one of my favorite countries in the entire world. Actually, you know what? Backtrack. It is my favorite country in the entire world. I love Poland so much, except for America. Okay, it's close second. Poland is amazing. It's beautiful. The weather is fantastic. The people are amazing. Some of my best friends live in Poland and I love it. Polish also happens to be one of the hardest languages for English language learners to speak. The nice thing about Polish is that it has a Latin alphabet, so I mean that you have that going for you. Of course, there are additional characters or maybe markers on the characters that will change their sound and meaning. Polish can be really difficult because there's a lot of times where they string consonants together. So you'll see an SZ next to a CZ, next to an RZ, or, you know, something like, probably not that. But, you know, they all make different sounds, and those consonant combinations can make different sounds. They're also, those consonant combinations are really hard for English speakers to put together a lot of times, because occasionally there are sounds that we don't actually have in English, like a zh. We don't have that sound in English, so it can be difficult for English speakers to learn and to recognize. And RZ makes a zh sound, and for English speakers, that kind of like blows their mind. My favorite city in the world is called Kowabzeg, and I'll put it under here. You can look at it. I guarantee you that you looking at it, unless you're Polish, would not have said Kowabzeg, not in a million years. But that's how it's said. The other thing about Polish that makes it difficult is that there are 7 different gender cases. So if you're going to conjugate a verb or even a noun, it has to be done within the gender. Now, there are 7 different ways that you can conjugate verbs, okay? That makes it really difficult. Anything, really any language with a gender, which is almost any language except English. For some reason, English doesn't do gender-based words, but almost every other language does. So you have the feminine form, you have the masculine form. And in Polish, you have 7 of those forms, which can make it kind of confusing for the English language speaker who is not used to any gender at all. We're just used to having one form of the word. There are 40 million speakers of Polish worldwide, so chances are good when you learn Polish, it's going to be a little bit difficult. I can say that it's probably been one of the more difficult. I think Hindi is still more difficult than Polish just because it's completely unrelated. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but you are going to unlock whole new friendships and worlds, and it's going to be amazing. And also, you should go to Poland because it's rad. Number 2 is Finnish. Now, this language is very difficult because it is a type of language that likes to make complex words by stringing together morphemes until they kind of get their idea across. So it's kind of like the equivalent of, if you've ever been with like me when I'm trying to describe a tool, you know, it's like the roly, sticky, screeny, putty-inny thingy, except imagine that as all one word. That's what Finnish is like. And for the English speaker to understand how they put them together and how they string together and end up with these massive words can be kind of confusing, but totally fun. Finnish is only spoken by 5.4 million people worldwide, so you would be kind of in an elite club if you learn Finnish. Check it out. It's pretty awesome. And number 1, kind of predictably I would say, is Japanese. Now, Asian languages, again, can be difficult if only for their alphabet. Okay, so like, you know, I speak Hindi, there's like 63 characters in Hindi, and that's before you get to vowel modifications. There are a whole bunch of characters that represent a whole bunch of sounds that we don't necessarily have in English. That can make it very difficult for an English language learner, or an English speaker to learn. The other thing that makes Japanese difficult is that it's actually based on 3 different alphabets, and they kind of use a combination of them. So there's the kanji alphabet, which is probably the most widely recognized as the Japanese alphabet, and it's, you know, it borrowed some characters from Chinese, and it's the logographic one, so it's the kind of the swirly characters. There's also this syllabic alphabet, which is known as kana, and then there's a Latin version, the Romaji alphabet, okay? So you have to learn 3 different alphabets to be able to speak Japanese. The US Foreign Service actually puts this as one of the harder languages because of the customs that go along with learning Japanese. It can be kind of difficult. They do it socially as well as linguistically, and so combining those things, Japanese can be really difficult for English language learners because the culture is also quite different. Another thing that makes it very difficult for English language learners, or English language speakers, sorry, I keep messing that up. You're not learning English, you're learning other languages. The other thing that makes it very difficult is that there are certain words that are written exactly the same, but the inflection or how you say the word can change the meaning of it. So I remember my sister was getting ready to go on a missions trip to Japan, and she was learning things. There was a word that was spelled the same way, but if you had an upward inflection, I could be getting this wrong, but if you had an upward inflection, it meant bridge, and if you had a downward inflection, it meant uncle. So just the inflection of your word can change the entire meaning of your sentence. Learning something like that, number one, it kind of has to be experiential. So you may call somebody's uncle a bridge once or twice, but that kind of stuff is very difficult to learn except by rote and except by experience. So my suggestion is this: for any of these languages, immersion is the quickest way to learn a language. So if you want to learn Polish, hop a flight to Poland and go spend time with some Poles. They're going to be the best teachers, and also hearing it all the time is really going to help it click in your brain. And you should just go to Poland because it's amazing. Again, I will be in Poland through July and part of August. There will still be Capricious Conversations when I'm gone, so don't freak out. There will be some pre-filmed episodes that are going to be aired then, and I will be filming episodes while I'm in Poland, and you will see those all when I get back. So let me know if you've undertaken any of these challenging languages, or if there's one that you think is just as challenging or more challenging than the ones that I've said. Let's get a conversation going. I love languages. You know this. Let's talk about it. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you for sharing this video with all your friends. Let's go on an adventure.